What's up, everybody? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. Today's video, we're going to rank every black superhero movie that's ever been made, at least that I know of. If you know of any more, please let me know in the comment section. I will definitely check them out. So, in honor of today's list, I'm actually wearing this shirt. The name of this character is actually at the bottom of the shirt. I'm not going to stand up and tell you. What I want to do is I want to see something, guys. Let me know in the comments if you know who this character is and or where he came from. I think it'll be interesting just to see who actually knows. And before I get started, I have one simple rule for the movies that made the list. The main character, the protagonist of the movie, had to be black. That is not part of an ensemble, so no Captain America Civil War or the Winter Soldier or any of the Captain America movies or any of the movies where there is a black hero but they're just part of the team. This time the main character had to be a black character. So let's go ahead and get into it, and I'm going to start with a movie that most of you have probably never heard of, even less of you have probably seen, and this one is called Black Superman, and that is the one and only rap mogul Master P, who plays the lead character. And he it's hard to explain what this movie is. It's one of those movies, yes, it's at the bottom of my list. Yeah, it's probably the worst made movie of everything. Well, pretty easily the worst made movie of everything here, but it's just incredibly fun because it's definitely in one of those so bad it's awesome kind of movies. So that is number 21 of all the black superhero movies ever made. At number 20 is another movie that's really bad, but a lot of you probably have seen this one. It stars the one and only Shaquille O'Neal as Steel. Basically, he was a character created in after the death of Superman, the so-called death of Superman, and he was supposed to be one of the ones to next in line, I guess, the passing of the cape, so to speak. And then it all morphed into this crazy movie. And it's another one that's really so bad it's awesome. It's not a good movie by any stretch, but if you want to see some nuttiness, go ahead and check out Steel. At number 19 will be a pretty big budget movie compared to what we just talked about, and it comes from this trilogy. This is the Blade trilogy, and of course I'm talking about that one right there, Blade Trinity. This is where they inject Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel into the movie, and the whole storyline is crazy. What happens behind the scenes is crazy. If you're familiar with it, just check out some YouTube clips or read some articles about what was happening on set, because Wesley Snipes was apparently just off his rocker at that point for a little while, and he did some insane movie star type stuff, including the infamous eye closed scene where his eyes were supposed to be open, but for whatever reason he refused to open his eyes, so they had to CGI some eye. It's weird, and if you watch the movie you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, that is one that is again, it's really bad. It's enjoyable if you know the nuttiness. If you don't, you just watch it and go, this is just terrible. And there's not much to like about this movie. I mean, Ryan Reynolds does his Ryan Reynolds shtick. Jessica Biel does Jessica Biel kind of things while also being a martial artist in the movie, or a vampire killer more accurately. But it's one in the trilogy that you can probably skip. Next movie is number 18, and that is a movie called Black Ninja. And I'm guessing that most of you have never heard of this movie either. This is kind of a Batman-ish, Daredevil-ish kind of character. He's a lawyer by day and a superhero by night who has ninja skills. So of course he dresses up like he does here in the picture, and he's a black ninja, and he's got to get revenge against the ninja he's crime fighting, and then happens to get a chance to meet up with the ninjas who killed his wife. I think is what it was. It's been a while since I watched Black Ninja, but yeah, that's another one that's just a little bit out there. Not a very good movie. Not quite as fun as the movies behind it, but slightly better made than some of them. And I can watch that one a little bit more often. That brings me to number 17, and it's a movie you probably all thought was going to be right at the very, very bottom, and it's still down here. It's still down here quite a ways. Halle Berry in Catwoman, and yeah, most of us who are into superhero movies have seen Catwoman. A lot of people who aren't saw Catwoman just because of Halle Berry. Not anything like the character she's based on, as far as we know. But that's not really that important to me, and it's just a bad story. To be honest with you, it's cheesy in a lot of ways. Sharon Stone hamming it up doesn't help, and yeah, it's, you know what the story is. The next movie is one I don't have, the only one that I don't have on physical media, and this was a Disney movie back in the early 2000s, either 2000 or 2001, I can't remember offhand, but this is Up, Up and Away. It starred one Robert Townsend. He is the dad in a family full of superheroes, and in this universe, uh, you get your superpowers, I think, at 13, something like that. Around your 13th birthday you start to get your superpowers, and his son is about to turn 13 and worried, or it might be late, but he hasn't gotten his powers yet, basically. And of course there's some crime going on, and he is going to try to solve it, to prove to people that he's still worthy, while trying to hide from his family that he doesn't have his powers yet or hasn't gotten in him. And it's just, it covers a lot of the same ground as Sky High, and I've talked about this before. It just, instead of being set at school mostly, this is set at home mostly with the family all around. But it's not made nearly as well. It's not got the budget behind it to do it, and it doesn't really take too many chances. But it's an interesting watch though. So number 16, Up, Up and Away, and that brings me to another movie, the most recent movie on the list, one of the most recent movies on the list, and this one is got a huge budget, lots of action in the movie, but to be honest, it kind of bored me to death, and that is my number 15, Black Adam. There's lots and lots of action. I just didn't care for the movie because it never seemed to be going anywhere, and The Rock, yes, The Rock is black. The Rock is just purposely not using any of the charisma that made him the star that he is, which is just crazy to me. It's like they all got together in a room and said, yeah, the thing that we all love you for, don't do that. So he didn't do that. He's kind of stoic the whole time, and it doesn't work for him. I mean, there are actors that have done it, of course, to great effect, but not for Black Adam. And the story just kind of was just repetitive. The story and the action was just repetitive. All the characters, they did the same thing between scenes over and over and over, and then we eventually get to the end. Next movie on my list, number 14, is a movie from the 70s, the first, I believe, the first and only blaxploitation superhero flick, and that is Abar, the first Black Superman, or just Black Superman, depends on who you're talking to. Here it just says Black Superman. And this movie is got some things going for it. It's trying to, it's definitely trying to make some social commentary. It's an interesting story. We see it as a family that's moved into an all-white neighborhood in the early 70s, and I understand that today that is generally not as an unpleasant experience as was in the 70s and 60s. But in this case, all of the white neighbors are getting together, and they're basically trying to terrorize this family into moving out. Abar is not actually part of the family. He is another guy. He just happens to get some Captain America going on, as in he is injected with some super serum, and he gets some powers later on in the movie, and they deal with that whole situation. So a very interesting movie. Moves a little bit slow though, or otherwise it probably would have been higher. And of course, with a blaxploitation flick, the budget is not much, so you don't really see him do too much super stuff. So, but it is out there. Very interesting movie. Another movie that we tried to get some more super stuff in, but it didn't quite work out. Because and I like this movie more than most. I'll say that. So it comes in at number 13, and the movie is the live action version of Spawn. Now Spawn is of course he is known as the Hell Spawn, or he was killed in action and was sent to hell, but made a bargain with the devil, and he came back, and he's trying to, instead of working for the devil, he's trying to still do good, and he's got this whole existential crisis going on, and then there's John Leguizamo as the clown, that is basically a demon from hell that's kind of egging him on to do the devil's bidding. So the story is really fascinating, but it's always been done better in the comics, and then on HBO's series, which I actually considered including here because there's 3 seasons. I have them all on DVD. The problem is, and they're presented like movies, meaning it's just one continuous stretch. But the problem is when taken by themselves, the second part and the third part, which is the second season, the third season, they feel incomplete, especially the third season because there's no resolution because they thought there was going to be a season 4. And because of that, I just said, you know what, they're TV shows, so we'll not include them at all. But the movie, again, I like better than most, but it's still not a great movie. And the CGI was even bad for the time because I went to the theater and saw the movie. And at that point, I was like, yeah, they didn't do too good a job on that. With the main culprit is the cape. The cape, if you're not familiar with Spawn, it has to do a lot. The cape does a lot for it, the character. And it just was way too cartoony, and that was a big issue with the movie. That brings me to my next movie, which is an actual cartoon, and this is from DC, and it is called Vixen. So Vixen is a title I came across a couple of years ago, and I wasn't really familiar with it. It's been out for a while, but I wasn't really familiar with the character because I haven't read comic books in years. But I just happened to come across this DVD. I believe it was in an FYE, and I snatched it up, gave it a watch, and it's actually a pretty decent movie. The main character, this young lady here in the middle, she's actually born in Africa. She's in America, lives in America, and bada boom, bada bing, she gets this magical amulet from her family that gives her the powers or the ability to utilize the powers of any animal. So, for instance, she can call on the strength of a bear or the speed of a cheetah or something like that and use that in her crime fighting. So, pretty interesting story. And if I'm not mistaken, there are more plans for this character as far as visual media is concerned, as far as movies or TV. She may have shown up in one or more of the DC shows that were on not UPN, the CW. But I don't really keep up with those shows. I haven't kept up with those shows as much as a lot of people, so I'm not really sure. That's going to bring me to number 11, and that is Hancock, starring Will Smith. And Hancock is a movie that really, when I watch this movie, I get into the middle of it and it's like, man, this is really good. This should be top 5 on this list. It should be one of the better superhero movies of its era. And then the third act happens, and that's where the movie just completely falls apart. Hancock himself is a great idea for a hero. He's basically just got coping issues, and he turns to alcoholism. He's always drunk, always late, not really interested in being a good guy. And then he runs into a image consultant and takes that character on, and she tries to clean him up and make him a hero. And there's lots more to it and leading into that third act. But when we get the big reveal of the third act, it fell flat. It didn't quite work the way the movie wants it to. So that's what keeps this out of my top 10. But let's go ahead and get into that top 10 with a movie that is pure 100% cheese. And I love it. I can't help it. It is really, really cheesy. But hey, how you going to hate on Meteor Man? Another Robert Townsend movie. Of course, he gets struck by a meteor or a meteor lands near him. He goes near it and he gets superpowers after that. And he uses those powers to try to clean up his Washington, D.C. neighborhood, which is overrun by gangs. And it's a big cheese fest, but it's fun to watch. Number 9 is a movie I watched just a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I was really impressed with this one. Another DC animated movie. This is Green Lantern, Beware My Power. The main character is the Green Lantern, of course, but this time it's John Stewart, not Hal Jordan. And he has just come into these powers and trying to figure out where they came from, what should he do with them, or what's going on. and he runs into the Justice League, of course, or seeks them out, and they don't trust him because he's not Hal Jordan. And is Hal Jordan alive or dead? That's the big mystery in the movie. And they do some interesting things with the character. I really enjoyed Beware My Power. Next is number 8, and that is a movie called Slight. Came out a few years ago, and this one is as much drama as it is superhero. And he is got a little bit of Magneto in him, and he can control some things, mostly metal things. He has some things floating around, and learning why is really fascinating. And this is the most hood movie of all the superhero movies because it's definitely inspired by a lot of other movies, that a lot of hood movies that you may have seen or may have heard of. It's got some of those same ideals to it. And he is basically his sister's only caregiver. I think he's still in high school in the movie, and she's younger, and he's looking out for her. Their parents are not around. If I'm not mistaken, they've both passed away. And he's having a hard time doing that, but he's also a whiz kid, and it's a fascinating story. Some people didn't like the end of this movie, the way I talk about Hancock, but I thought it worked really well. It did set up for a sequel that we're probably never going to get, unfortunately, but I really did enjoy Slight. Number 7 on the list is going to be the funniest movie on the list, and it's a movie that critics hate. You look on Rotten Tomato, IMDb, you look on all those things, and people just bash this movie, and I don't understand why. It's amazing superhero spoof, particularly of 60s Batman. If you're familiar with that series, the old Adam West series, it is definitely a spoof of that, and a lot of people just don't acknowledge that. But I'm here to tell you that that's what it is more than anything, and that is Blank Man with Damon Wayans and of course his sidekick J5, Blank Man and J5. And I just watched this again recently, and I just have a blast with this movie every single time. Is it silly and stupid? Yes, it is, and it is supposed to be that way. And gets to number 7 on my list. Number 6 is a movie that is a very responsible for this current superhero boom. Not solely responsible, but it was really the first domino to fall, and that is the original Blade right there. And Wesley Snipes, of course, is Blade, and he was a great character and did a great performance in the role. And to contrast this with Black Adam, Wesley Snipes is also an actor with lots of charisma, and the character of Blade calls for him to tone it down, and he did it, but it still worked. Whereas with The Rock, I didn't feel it worked in Black Adam. I think it really does work with Wesley and Blade. And in this movie, of course, he's the Daywalker, the vampire, half vampire. He can walk during the daytime, and he's hunting pure vampires and trying to take them out because they are definitely a scourge on our Earth. And it just does so much. And like I said, this was really the first domino to leading to the current superhero boom. And then following this, of course, there was X-Men, and then the Spider-Man movie really opened the floodgates, the first Spider-Man. But this was the first domino to fall in that. And next movie is probably the least superhero movie of all these superhero movies. It's heavy drama, definitely big on social commentary, dealing with women's issues, black women's issues, and how society views them, how the government views them, and that is Fast Color. And Gugu Mbatha-Raw is the star. She's an amazing actress who is not getting as many roles as she should, in my opinion at least. But she has done some great things, and in this movie she is really good. And she's really on the run from a government organization who's trying to catch her and use her for her powers, and she eventually has to head back home at least for a bit, and she has a mom and a daughter there, so it's a slow burn. So if you're looking for a lot of whiz bang action from your superhero movies, this is not it. So just I'm warning you ahead of time, but it is a very good movie. Fast color. That's my number 5. Number 4 is the latest movie in the Black Panther saga, the most somber of all the MCU movies, and that is Wakanda Forever. I really enjoyed this movie. Yes, it had to deal with the death of Chadwick Boseman, and it did so in a way that really pushed the story, and it really pushed the cast, even because they had to be really kind of in their feelings for the whole production. I would imagine, with not only the death of a character, main character in the movie, but the death of their real life peer who was on the journey with them and is no longer there. And the movie, I thought, did a great job of it, and it gave us one of the more interesting Marvel villains in Prince Namor, or Namor as they call him in the movie. So I'm looking forward to more from that character, and of course the next Black Panther movie whenever it comes out. And that's gonna take me to number. That's gonna take me to number 3, and number 3 is gonna be Blade 2. Blade 2 is a phenomenal horror slash superhero movie. It is the most horror of just about any superhero movie that I can think of. With the exception of probably Brightburn, and maybe the Batman, because the Batman has a lot of horror elements too. But this, we get some amped up vampires in Blade 2, and this is, of course, Guillermo del Toro directed this one, and he does what he does with it. And of course, we get Wesley again, and my favorite of the Blade series, and one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. And another one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, is my number 2, and that is the first Black Panther movie. And this one, for me, what gives me the edge over the other Black Panther movie, for instance, is actually not Chadwick Boseman. He is the main character, but he is largely, well, he's the protagonist and the title character, but he's largely a side character for maybe half the movie, maybe even more. He's got the Dora Milaje, which are the security team for Wakanda, and of course he's got Lupita Nyong'o's character, who I'm drawing a blank on for a minute, and Angela Bassett is his mom, of course, and then you get Shuri, his sister, and they really run the movie for a lot of the time. But the real person that really gets this up here for me is Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. Killmonger, to me, is one of the best superhero movie villains of all time. And as others have said, he actually gets the hero of the movie to change his mind, which is a victory for him. Now, we can have long conversations about Killmonger and whether he was right, wrong, his methods. We can talk about all that, but it gets my number 2. And number 1, if you were paying attention, then you would know that there is one big movie out there. It's about to get a sequel that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. This movie is the animation on it is stunning. I can't stress that enough. I went to the theaters just to see it, and when I was watching it on the big screen, it was like, what? This looks weird, but it's also just amazing looking. And then I've seen it several more times at home, and the animation holds up. But more than that, the story holds up. We got a coming of age story here. We got Miles Morales as our Spider-Man, and he is just not really sure of himself as the movie starts. And then, of course, we get all the multiverse stuff with all the Spider-Mans from different worlds coming in. Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir, one of my favorites in the movie, and with all the black and white surrounding him all the time. That's just hilarious to me. And then we get some great villains in the movie. We get a great family story. It's just an amazing film. If you have not seen Into the Spider-Verse, with the sequel coming out soon, definitely watch this movie. See what everybody's talking about, and you'll thank me later. Let me know what you think, how you would rank the ones that you have seen, And I'm looking forward to some of the movies that we're getting soon. We're getting another Blade soon. I didn't mention, with Mahershala Ali in the lead role, and of course another Spider-Verse movie coming out, Across the Spider-Verse, pretty soon, which I'm really excited about, and I'm just looking forward to those things. So that's all I have for you guys on this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.